Welcome back everyone, the magic of the World Cup strikes again. We have a big upset result. Spain dropped points against Cape Verde, the big favourite for this World Cup, in my opinion, in many people's opinion. Certainly a result they'll be disappointed with. I've got two games to cover, both of them draws, both of them European teams, big European teams dropping points against African teams. Obviously, in the case of Belgium and Egypt, it is much more tightly matched, but Belgium may still be a bit disappointed. But the big question is, does this draw against Cape Verde have anything for Spain's World Cup chances? And obviously, it doesn't really. It is a disappointing result. I do think there are some conclusions to take away from this. I do think maybe the rest of the team isn't as impactful as some people think. Some questionable choices. But generally, I don't think it's too much of a concern. Again, we know this is Lamine Yamal's team. Without Lamine Yamal, this team looks a lot more concerning. Couple of standouts here. I think the entire front three, poor. Red arrows. Ferran Torres especially, so wasteful. Gavi obviously out of position on that left wing. Not necessarily the most impactful player either. And surprisingly, in my opinion, Oyarzabal, who often turns up for Spain and looks very, very good. Very ineffective today. Pedri, Rodri, I thought in the midfield looked very good. Pedri, as always, potentially has been criticized for it. Lacks a bit of that final third impetus, that game-changing ability, but still what he brings you in overall play is brilliant. Rodri, I thought some of his passes into that final third were very good. And he was one of Spain's bright creative sparks earlier in the game before Lamine Yamal came on, because as we'll talk about Lamine Yamal, even an injured Lamine was Spain's biggest hope, or returning from injury Lamine. The reason I don't think this is too much of a concern is because on a different day, Spain probably still win this. A lot of chances which were unfortunate. Early on, this strike gets saved by the goalkeeper from Cape Verde, who had a phenomenal game, I must say. Here, one of those passes from Rodri, which I applaud so much, which I thought were really good. Dig over the top into Cucurella, who makes a very good call and also a very good cutback header. Goes to Ferran, who slams it into the bar. Classic Ferran Torres. This is what we've seen from this game, from much of this season as well. And in the follow-up as well, the ball gets hit and saved by the goalkeeper, who again, I said, had a very good game. Spain, many chances throughout. Here again, Ferran Torres, straight at the goalkeeper from a very, very good chance. And then comes on Lamine Yamal. Still returning from injury, we immediately see the impact he has. I got some flack on TikTok for saying he was largely ineffective, which I do think. Obviously, he picks up the ball. He's a threat man, but we're talking about Lamine Yamal's standards. If we look at, the Lamine Yamal that came on, or that played against Atleti, he comes on, Spain win 2-3-0 still. I would not be surprised. Lamine Yamal, with the amount of sort of percussive quality, just the impact, the impetus he has, we still didn't see it yet. It was a bit more reserved. Obviously, in part, it's because Spain created so little and threatened so little, so Lamine had to do it all himself, as he so often does for Barcelona. But in other parts, I do think he just needs to gain a little bit more rhythm, which is fine. He will build that up for the later stages of the tournament, which is why I think Spain will be fine, because this Lamine Yamal kid is a freak. At 18, he's the best player in the world. This still that I have for you, when he got subbed on, the stadium goes crazy, as if they had scored a goal. I think we all remember that scene of Lionel Messi warming up against Atleti, and when the fans see him, they start celebrating. It's just a different level. He comes on, he is the main man. Spain immediately start creating majorly through that right-hand side, but still some things which I didn't love about this performance. Lamine just needs to get going a little bit more. Here, he picks up the ball, and he just held onto it a bit too long. Not in the sense that he was dribbling too much, but just squared up to his man and stood there and delayed a little bit, looking for a window to dribble. I think on better form, he would have taken that window slightly sooner. Those three players highlighted there, obviously knowing the threat of Lamine, had time to come in and triple team him. On a different day, he starts dribbling earlier, gets past those two players, gets into that box. But still, we're talking about Lamine Yamal. He turns around, recycles possession, gets the ball a moment later, and then goes ahead and beats his man, and creates a good chance. Sorry, creates a good chance from this situation, but ultimately Spain don't score. And then just a bit later, again, he creates a shooting chance for himself, but it gets blocked, fizzles out of play. And then there was this one chance which a lot of people pointed out as some phenomenal play. The famous Lamine Yamal Trivela. We've seen it so many times. He does hit it in behind. A fantastic call from Dani Olmo, I believe. But again, just a little bit of sharpness missing. This pass, when we often see this Trivela fizzed in low and hard, this one was just a bit slower, a bit loopier. And here we can see Dani Olmo is ahead of the defender, but by the time it arrives at his feet, the defender is right on top of him, and so he's forced to take a touch wide. This was pretty much the end of the game. Spain not all that threatening, considering how much possession they had, how much of the ball they had, how high up they had it. Still a bit of lack in that final third. Potentially they don't have a big target to aim at in the box with crosses. They don't have anyone on that left-hand side. Obviously, we see it was Gavi starting. He's not one to take on his man. He's not one to run in behind. They are still missing Nico Williams. Even in poor form, Nico Williams will be more effective because he will force some of that pressure off the right-hand side and into the left. You can't ignore Nico Williams, even if he's not having a great game. You need to worry about him, and that frees up a bit more space for Lamine Yamal. 0-0. Spain will be disappointed. The only thing I think this means now is, first of all, Spain will be looking at this game, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay, which does kick off in about 10 minutes. They will be looking at what form Uruguay's coming in. They're not as good as they were a couple of years ago. They are still a decent team. The important thing is now they don't have a guaranteed first place. Or rather, it is a bit more difficult. If they don't turn up against Uruguay, they cannot afford to slip up against Uruguay, because if they do finish second in this group, it is quite bad. Because looking at this bracket and looking at where Uruguay is, a second place in this group means a likely clash in the round of 32 against Argentina, which, as good as Spain are, they probably don't want to do that just yet. So in any case, big focus on the Saudi Arabia Uruguay game, just to make sure what sort of level is Uruguay bringing to this game. What can we expect? Spain will need to turn up and get 3 points against Uruguay to make sure that they finish first in this group. But otherwise, Lamine Yamal will come back. He'll pick up rhythm. The overall Spain play, midfield was strong. The defense was solid. I'm not too concerned just yet. I think no alarm bells in the Spanish camp. But Lamine Yamal will need to turn up and have a good tournament, which we already knew, and which I think we can reasonably expect. Moving on to the second game, Egypt against Belgium. King Mohamed Salah still showing us he's got a bit of it. 1-1 Belgium-Egypt. And generally, this is still a question of disappointment for Belgium. I think especially before the game even kicks off, you look at their squad. De Bruyne, he's old. Meunier, what is he still doing here? He had a disastrous game, by the way. Obviously, up top, Charles de Ketelaere, he's a decent player. Lukaku is probably who they want up there, and even so, Lukaku, again, a bit past it. As good as he always is for Belgium, he is a bit past it. He's been better at previous tournaments. Leandro Trossard never impressed me all that much for Belgium. He did look decent today, a couple of bits of quality. And the big hope, Jeremy Doku, after a phenomenal season for City, after a fantastic season for City in a tournament in international football where we do see individual players who are good at dribbling, who are good at breaking into that penalty box, shine a bit more than at club level. We expected so much, and I think Egypt largely shut him out. Again, red arrow, not necessarily because he was one of the worst players on the pitch, but simply because relative to what was expected of him, he disappointed. We thought he'd carry Belgium in this tournament. He may still, but definitely didn't do so in this match. And the first moment of individual brilliance was this Egypt goal. Twofold individual brilliance, really. Mohamed Salah, first of all, this pass to pick out, breaks these lines. The Belgian structure here, I'm not too impressed with. But a phenomenal pass. It gets picked up here. Thomas Meunier, where is he going. He has no idea. Even in the first place here, he's sort of sitting a bit deeper than everyone. I'm not sure he's aware he's got a player running in behind him. Either way, great dummy run, dummy run in behind. Runs in closer, phenomenal first touch, and then just rifles it in that bottom right corner for Courtois, who doesn't manage to save it, and getting a shot past Courtois is impressive. Absolutely so. And again, Salah, lovely to see that pass from him. He gets a thank you for that wonderful assist. But then comes on Belgium's big man, Romelu Lukaku. Pay attention to the time. 65-37. Lukaku comes on. 65-47. He is picking the ball out of the net. And it did turn out to be an own goal in the end, but it was Lukaku's presence that allowed for this play to happen. He makes a phenomenal run in behind. And you can see in this chaos, two defenders trying to mark him from either side. An own goal, a leg gets stuck out. It goes into Egypt's net. And it's back to 1-1. And what I will say is, what I liked about Egypt is how they managed to mentally recover from this goal. Because in the moments after, they did start dropping in. They started sitting deep. They started worrying about Lukaku in that box, having two players on him. But it was only for a moment. And many times we see teams concede and then slip into an ultra-defensive setup and then concede a second one. But Egypt managed to turn it around. They managed to break out of that defensive structure. They managed to create, and in the end they managed to create quite a couple of chances against Belgium, and they could have scored. I think 1-1 is a relatively fair score. Belgium will probably be disappointed with it. Egypt will be disappointed they conceded the equalizer after going 1-0 up. They perhaps would have felt they could have continued to capitalize on their good form, but generally I think 1-1 is pretty fair. And I'm not sure that 1-1 happens if Egypt stay in this sort of position and they keep defending. So big credit to them for actually gaining back control of the match, bringing it back to more of a 50-50 in those later minutes and not succumbing to, bad mentality after conceding a painful equalizer. And so all to play for in this group. Belgium definitely disappointed to drop points here. A good start for Egypt. Both teams will look at Iran and New Zealand as the games to pick up the points in. Later today, we see Iran, New Zealand, 2 a.m. for me. It's going to be a sleepless night. But in any case, in about 5 minutes' time, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay kicks off. I'm going to watch that. This video probably goes up during halftime of that game. In any case, thank you so much for watching. See you later.